Welcome, everybody, to our first Synovial Sarcoma Foundation webinar, where our hope is to walk you through all of the exciting updates about the foundation, where we are, what we're doing, and what the future has in store. But first off, I'd love to introduce myself. I'm Nathan Imperiale, and I am the chairman of the board for the foundation. And a little bit about myself. I am CEO of a global communications and creative agency based here in Washington, D.C. And unfortunately, the reason I'm part of this community is because my husband, Eddie, was diagnosed about 2 years ago with synovial sarcoma. Since then, like most of you, we have been fighting as hard as humanly possible to keep him healthy and safe from this disease as long as possible. With that, I'll turn it over to Chaz Spence, who's our founder and executive director. Chaz, you can introduce yourself.
Yes, thanks for having me. Super excited to be partnered with Nathan. Now we are an official 501c3, so we are a real foundation now. Just a little bit about me. I'm an investor, an entrepreneur. I've been a cancer advocate for now 4 years after my son Callan was diagnosed with synovial sarcoma. I'm from Texas. I went to the University of Texas. I've been a part of a number of different startups throughout my career, starting in 2000 with an internet startup, and then moved on to management consulting for many years, where I worked with a lot of private equity firms. And then I was the founder of my own company, finance company that we started about 12 years ago. And now we've got a number of different startups that we've started. I've got about 80 something employees that work for me full time. And I treat this foundation as a startup. And it's a successful startup. We've raised a couple of $1 million. We're doing real groundbreaking work, and which is all being supercharged now by Nathan and his team. He's put the full force of NJI Media, a global marketing firm, behind us. I feel like are incredibly fortunate to be able to have this partnership with them and have Nathan on our team now. So thank you, Nathan.
Well, thank you, and it's a true honor to be part of this cause. And the last 8 months or so have been really remarkable in terms of the momentum that we have seen behind us, and it's been not only a challenge, but it's been an exciting environment for us to be in. And obviously for myself, the life of my husband is at stake. For you, the life of your son. And so we couldn't be any more committed to this. Before we sort of go on to give you a little bit more background on what we're up to, I think it's important that we share our mission and sort of our three main pillars. But as really the only organization in the world that is solely focused on synovial sarcoma, we take this responsibility pretty darn seriously. If we don't do this, no one else is going to. Our first priority is truly to drive the research that will lead to better treatments and better outcomes for our loved ones. And we've been really fortunate to build partnerships with Penn Medicine and CHOP, Children's Hospital of Pennsylvania, which are Ivy League institutions and some of the top medical centers in the world. And we have been really fortunate to be connected with some of the world's leading experts on synovial sarcoma and sarcoma in general. And so that has really driven our ability to lead the research part of the equation for synovial sarcoma. And two, taking that research and expanding clinical resources for clinicians, for doctors, for oncologists, for surgeons across the country, so that we are providing better guidance for the type of care that is most important or useful for our community. There's been such little information about synovial sarcoma that's been studied, and there's so many variations in this disease that it makes it really difficult to figure out treatment options that really work the best. And for now, the standard of care is, quite frankly, not good enough. We all know that. Areas in which those clinical resources should be expanded. And obviously, the medications and the treatment solutions need to improve as well. And then third, fostering a strong community of both our patients and their caregivers and loved ones. It is so important, obviously, to all of us that we have a community that we can lean on and learn from. I know, speaking from experience, when Eddie was diagnosed, there was such place where patients truly felt comfortable or felt supported by an organization like ours, and felt like their care team, their medical team, really had the information and resources available to support them as well. So those are our three main pillars, and we'll sort of speak a little bit more about those in depth as we go through. But first, I'd like to pass it over to Chas just to give a little bit more background on how we got to where we are. And thank God, Chas and his family, in the midst of caring for their son Callan and battling his first bout with synovial sarcoma, they had the wherewithal and drive to figure out how to make a difference. They knew that someone needed to grab the bull by the horns, and that's what they did. So, Chas, I'll let you dive in a little bit more there.
Yeah, so just going over kind of quickly our story. Callan was diagnosed in January 2022. He was 16 years old. He had a 17 to 19 centimeter mass in his chest that was considered unresectable, inoperable at first in our first meetings, and really no treatment available other than your standard frontline chemo. And he was given around a year to live. Which was devastating, and it's hard to, as all of you know, reliving those moments. But we started doing our own research, and we realized how little this disease had been studied, but did find a treatment center that was willing to do a comprehensive case on him, including with a surgical team. We chose CHOP, who did provide the comprehensive team for us, and he had a 10-hour surgery that involved removing his upper lung, right lobe, and creating a 6-inch graft of his subclavian artery, and removing his phrenic and vagus nerves, along with a number of other things that were sacrificed during surgery, which were really it was unbelievable, but it took 7 surgeons in the room to be able to pull that off. It was described as, as complicated of a surgery as, removing, conjoined twins, because essentially he had another living body in him that had to be removed that was attached to all the primary organs. And so really only a few places in the world that could have pulled it off, and CHOP was one of them, and was willing to do it. And we didn't know he would survive, but, here 3.5 years later, he's a junior in college, and NED. We with all of that, it kind of led us down to developing. I knew with my management consulting background, there was so little data, but I wanted to create the community that we all have here now, which started with a Facebook community where we were asking for survey responses. And by the time our community got to about 100, I felt it was about time to introduce the data to CHOP and the CHOP team. So I reviewed it with Callan's care team at CHOP, and they gave me the blessing that it was actually, I was onto something, and they'd love to kind of help parlay that into something bigger. And I asked them to come up with an idea, and they came up with creating a national registry, and and biorepository, which is fairly common in lots of other cancers. It just did not exist for synovial sarcoma. So I asked them what they needed to get going. They told me $1 million. So we raised $1 million in about 2 months, half of which was my money. And we got that launched and off the ground. And we are now 3 years in, and we have the largest registry and biorepository in the world. Thanks to all of you for participating. When Callan had his recurrence, like many of us experience, we were actually looking at funding a clinical trial for a pediatric clinical trial for tumor glow, which is a surgical assist for lighting tumors up visually for surgeons to see during surgery. So we actually funded that clinical trial, which was another $1 million. And Callan was actually a beneficiary of tumor glow and removing and resecting successfully his recurrence near his primary tumor last year, about 14 months ago, and he remains NED. And then just all of the other research that's associated with, including, we have listed here the Ralph enzyme, the PDX models, and all the gene therapies that can be derived from having actual live tissue. And without the biorepository, we cannot study the disease. So it's really up to you, all of you listening on the phone, to participate in the biorepository so we can continue to make progress, because scientists are looking to our team now to provide them those samples, and it's your samples that we're using now. So
obviously, there was a huge amount of infrastructure that was established with the Spence Family Synovial Sarcoma Fund that was started to lead the efforts that Chas just mentioned. And earlier this year, we transitioned that fund into a true foundation to continue building on that infrastructure. So in less than a year, since March, really, we launched synovialsarcoma.org, which we hope has already become a resource for many of you, both from a standpoint of listing all the clinical trials that we know of that are currently in a phase that might be meaningful to our patient community, to increasing our social media presence and sort of our general communications to the community, to make sure that we're reaching our patients and clinicians with information that's critical. We have really scaled the impact of our advocacy efforts, ensuring that we're building that community that can then fight for, whether it be funding or more resourcing or just more visibility into the disease. And that also allows us to build a community of patients that drive the research, because the data that we're deriving is just so critical for biotech companies, for institutions like CHOP and Penn Medicine and every other organization around the world that's studying synovial sarcoma. Our community has the answers. It is in your tumor tissue, it's in the reports, your medical records, it's in your scans. That information allows our researchers and those that are doing research around the world to really better understand how different treatments work, and what treatments need to be produced in order to improve outcomes. And obviously, we've continued to deepen our partnership with CHOP, and begun expanding our efforts with Penn Medicine, Dana-Farber, MD Anderson, WashU, MSK, Rutgers. We'll showcase that a little bit more later, but a big part of what we need to do is bring all of these institutions together so that we're all pulling from the same side of the rope. We've also established a medical advisory board to formalize review of clinical studies, our research priorities, and our data sharing with other groups and institutions, and so that, again, we're getting the best information out to the broadest number of individuals who are focused on this disease. So I think it's important that we share sort of a little bit more about our team. It's not just Chas and I. showcase our board members here. Chas, you want to talk about Laura real quick?
Yeah. So my wife, Laura, she's was a social worker, and she's a clinical therapist by trade, has worked in a number of hospitals throughout her career. And she was the primary caregiver for Callan during his initial treatment. And it was unbelievable how she was able to navigate the cycle of hospitals and move in and out of hospitals and understand how to talk to nurses and doctors in a way that we actually are getting the right answer. And we're not sitting there as kind of, patient victims, but rather we continue to advocate for Callan even when he's in a bad spot. So I thought, she's absolutely perfect in being able to help empower and talk about how to navigate the waters of a hospital. And oftentimes with this disease and diagnosis, you need to get 3 or 4 different opinions. I know, Nathan, you guys gone to 25 different hospitals. You've talked to every oncologist. And we encourage you to and if your oncologist isn't encouraging you to get other opinions, go see another oncologist. There should be no pride and ownership of your diagnosis from these doctors. You need to, they do not see this disease very often. They see it very, very rarely. They don't know the answers. They need to be on the National Tumor Board, listening to the cases each month if they get your case. And if they're not, recommend they get on there. And if they don't get on there, we recommend you go see another oncologist. So this is what Laura is working on. She's works on this foundation almost every day. And she's managing our Facebook site and managing the contacts with our donor pool as well. So that's Laura.
Laura is amazing, and we'll likely be in touch with many of you through Facebook and through email. She's really done an amazing job continuing to foster a strong community. And next up here is Dr. Ted Leitch. He is our clinical director and a board member as well. He leads the rare tumor program at CHOP, again, in coordination with UPenn and Penn Medicine. And he is not only leading groundbreaking research in sarcomas and synovial sarcoma, but he leads all of our laboratory efforts on the preclinical side, and our registry and biorepository, and also leads the tumor board, the National Tumor Board, which we'll share a little bit more of. But Dr. Leitch is, quite frankly, a godsend, not only to the foundation, but our community at large. He is truly passionate about solving this disease and finding better outcomes and solutions. And he has, one of the other amazing things about CHOP and Penn Medicine is that the amount of resources that those institutions have combined allows clinicians like Dr. Leitch to spend a significant amount of their time on programs like the Synovial Sarcoma Foundation and the efforts that we're jointly doing.
Andy was also awarded $1 million grant from the NIH to free up his time to spend on our research. So that was it was $1 million grant that was given to him in the last month, which is incredible. It's just that's going to benefit our foundation, which is incredible.
And the only other thing that I will add is, he's technically a pediatric oncologist. He works at CHOP, which is the pediatric institution, but they're one and the same with Penn Medicine, and all of that institution operates basically as one. And so the resource sharing between the two, and Dr. Leitch's knowledge base is beyond just about any oncologist that I have ever had the privilege of meeting. And especially as it relates to synovial sarcoma. So we are, again, could not be luckier to have him leading the clinical side of what we're up to. Josh Schultz, next up here, also board member. He happens to be a co-CEO of my agency, NJI. He's also my right hand in life in general, and I'm incredibly lucky to have him. And I dragged him in. Actually, he joined willingly our board and has been driving a lot of our marketing and communications efforts. He has also got a strong background in philanthropy. His mom, who's also been a strong donor and advocate for us, led a number of major nonprofit groups, also in Texas, where Chas is located. And so his drive is just tremendous. Next up, another person connected to me. You'll see there's a theme here with anybody who knows us gets dragged into supporting us, and they really stepped up in a major way. But Eddie Cohen happens to be my husband, and he's on our board, and obviously a patient advocate, being a patient himself. But he is an attorney with the United States Department of State, and also leads all of our legal and compliance and review. So it's great to have a free attorney on the board. Luisa Imperiale is Chief Advancement Officer at Issue One, which is a major nonprofit leading efforts to strengthen democracy. But she has had decades of fundraising experience and has brought that talent to lead the fundraising efforts for the foundation, which is critically important as we try and raise an additional $25 million over the next few years. Jennifer Smith, another powerful member of our team. Her son, Seth, has been battling synovial sarcoma, and she has been a tremendous advocate, not only for him, but our community at large. You see her popping up in so many of the conversations online and in our Facebook group and others. She's also been leading efforts to review clinical trials and reaching out to those institutions that have the trials active to make sure that our information on our website on synovialsarcoma.org is up to date. So really thrilled to have her. And also she's led a number of previous fundraising efforts along with Chas for the programs that we already have started. And then lastly, David Satterfield. He is a senior associate at a firm that handles nonprofit and political compliance, important when we're raising money, especially at the level that we will continue to do. And he's been guiding us through the process of getting formalized as a 501c3, which we've completed. And we'll be making sure that all of our funds are utilized in ways that are fully compliant, and obviously the vast majority will go towards the actual research that will move the needle on solving this disease. So those are our wonderful board of directors. Next up, again, these are some of the partners that we have leading the research on the clinical side. These folks are all housed at CHOP and Penn Medicine, but we are in constant coordination with them on a near daily basis. Diani, many of you have spoken to directly. She is a research coordinator leading up the clinical registry and biorepository. She's the one who coordinates with your care teams and your hospitals to get tumor tissue for the repository. She answers questions. She's an amazing resource for everyone. Obviously, Dr. Leitch, who I've already spoken about. Lauren is a program manager, also leading up our registry efforts, but also leading up the tumor board efforts and making sure that new doctors and clinicians are onboarded. And then Liz, who's director of development at CHOP, is a tremendous resource as we've been raising more funds and will be instrumental in helping us reach our next goals for groundbreaking research. With that, I'd love to go over our current and growing research programs, and this is really important. The tumor board and Chas, I will let you dive in here too, because I don't like hearing my own voice. But I'll quickly just mention that our tumor board is one of the programs that Chas and his family funded and really felt was a critical component to improving care for so many synovial sarcoma patients across the country. As we all know, there are very few doctors who are experts in this disease, and even if they are experts, they still rely on their network of other doctors and institutions to inform on new treatments that might be working and things that might not be working so well. So this tumor board brings together 122 doctors from across the country, from just about every leading institution, and then smaller institutions, those that don't necessarily have sarcoma programs, and those are the doctors that join to learn more about ways that they should be supporting their patients in smaller communities at smaller institutions. So this is really a lifeline for those doctors. And in addition to that, anyone is able to present a case. Any clinician is able to present a case of a particular patient to the tumor board, so that the entire tumor board can review those cases, give feedback, give insights into what might be a good course of action for care and treatment. So really encourage all of our community members to ask their doctors if they need additional support, especially, or if they want to just support these efforts, to join the tumor board. It meets once a month. And Lauren, whose email is on the slide, is the main contact for clinicians. Lauren will get any doctor set up to join. It's really easy. They just need to send an email to her. So encourage you to talk to your doctors about the Synovial Sarcoma Tumor Board and give them information on this. You can go to our website, synovialsarcoma.org, and find more information on the tumor board there, which you can share with your doctors.
And I think it's important to understand the difference between the National Tumor Board and the local hospital tumor boards. You're going to hear the word tumor board thrown around all the time, that they're going to be presenting to the tumor board. Understand that that's your local tumor board. Most hospitals have a tumor board that meets once a week to discuss their cases. This is not the same thing. This is a national tumor board, which is required for orphan diseases like our synovial sarcoma. So understand the importance and the difference between the two. This is not your local tumor board where they may see one synovial sarcoma case every 2 years. Ask them to present your case to the National Tumor Board, which meets once a month, and they need to be a member, and then they can review your case and have other folks that are experiencing these diagnoses and what's working, what's not working. So really important, super to get involved in that one.
Chas, you want to dive into the clinical registry as well?
So obviously we have our Facebook survey that we do, that all of you guys have participated to be a member of our group. However, that's just kind of an entry point. What we needed to do was establish a clinical registry, one that it can be peer reviewed and used for future research. And so the registry is basically, it asks a lot of the same questions, frankly, but it's managed by clinical teams. And that is something we really want to make sure that everyone is participating in as well. And which leads to kind of the biorepository, which is really where the rubber meets the road with our foundation right now. What's the biggest benefit that we're providing to the clinical community? Well, that's the biorepository. That's the tissues that you submit. We actually had several folks submitting tissues, live tissues this week, post-surgery. It needs to be done. You need to be coordinating with Deani before going into surgery so she can communicate with your care team. They know exactly what to do. This isn't like a novel thing. It's just they're doing it all the time with many other diseases. They just need to be aware that synovial sarcoma now fits that match, so they can preserve your tissue in a way that we can use for research. It's the only way we will find a solution for this disease, and you are it. So please take this one seriously. It's the biggest thing you can do, more than money, more than anything, is to make sure your tissue is donated to this repository to be used for future studies.
Yeah. Another really, really exciting update is the work that Dr. Rachel Hurley is doing in the lab. And talk about working at lightning speed. This program was funded last year, and Dr. Hurley has a lab established at CHOP and PenMed where she focuses on recurrence and resistance, but has developed mouse models, so live mice modeling, as it's called, where tumor tissue from our biobank is implanted or grown and then implanted in these mice, and then various treatments are then tested. And just over the last couple of months alone, 10 different treatments new treatments were developed and are now being tested in these live mouse models. And I mean, that alone is absolutely remarkable that we've already gotten to a place where we're testing 10 new treatments. And again, that is based upon data that we've derived from our registry and the biorepository on information that is taken from your biomarkers and all of the relevant information that drives this research, so that we can now look at various treatment solutions, develop medications and combinations of treatment that we can then start testing on these mice to see how they react. And that is something that's quite frankly happening at breakneck speed and is sort of unheard of in our community, in the medical community at large. And I think it's important to say that CHOP has told Chas and I point blank that in their history, they don't know of another organization that has driven research as quickly and as hard as we have. And as Chas said a number of times, we're leading the charge as if we're a startup. We have to move quickly. We have to drive fast. Time is of the essence for our loved ones and for all of you and your loved ones. This disease, unfortunately, moves quickly, and we need to move even quicker. And that is exactly what we're doing. So Dr. Hurley has won awards for her work. It's truly groundbreaking stuff, and we're very privileged to have her leading some of our clinical research efforts.
And she too was granted an NIH award recently. Our foundation wrote a letter on her behalf last year, and she was one of the new researchers that was awarded a nice grant for her research to continue our work. So just amazing things happening right now.
So now more on sort of what we're looking at for our future. I love how Chas actually refers to us as the center of gravity, or becoming the center of gravity for the research and solutions for this disease. When I dove headfirst into the foundation, I quickly realized how disconnected various institutions and biotech companies were. Everyone there are plenty of institutions across the country, across the world, that are leading synovial sarcoma research efforts and are developing new treatments. We have been incredibly fortunate as a community that Adaptimmune was able to develop a cell therapy for synovial sarcoma, and we got lucky in that it was sort of an accident. They were setting out to develop a cell therapy for a number of sarcomas, and it just so happened that it ended up working best for synovial. Just to finish up my commentary on us being the center of gravity here, we have now visited all of the institutions that are listed here and met with and created relationships with each one of the biotech companies listed here as well. Like I was saying, Adaptimmune was just a remarkable coincidence that their treatments are now available for synovial sarcoma, and we want to help drive additional research with them, and have created a strong partnership, Diagnostic Green as well, US World Meds actually has bought the rights to Tecelra and Lete-cel, which is a new upcoming cell therapy that will be available for synovial sarcoma patients, hopefully mid next year. But one of the other major parts of what we can be doing to help improve research is ensuring that each one of these institutions knows what the other is doing. And that it's not to say that the researchers and doctors are not in contact and don't know each other. But there's a lot going on in silos. For example, MD Anderson has a retrospective registry of patient data. It's a huge registry of information that goes back to the 1970s. And that's been leading some of their research. But what we would like to do is open that up and connect it with the registry that's housed at CHOP and Penn Medicine, and also bring into the fold additional institutions so that we can grow the registry exponentially. So continuing to drive efforts at each one of these institutions and working as partners with everybody listed here. Advance here. So these are sort of the three main areas that we are looking to continue to fund in the coming years. Clinical registry is one of our number one priorities. We have the infrastructure set up at CHOP and Penn Medicine. We're now looking to hire additional researchers that will sit at a lot of the institutions that were on the previous slide, where we will actually have a researcher, either full-time or part-time, depending on the scale, at these other institutions, so that they can be in person, in-house, pulling that clinical data from patients that are currently active, and also retrospectively going through the various medical records at those institutions, adding that data into our global registry, again, to help be the backbone of additional research, both from just understanding what treatments have been most effective, and also leading what research ends up being focused on in developing new treatments. And then on top of that, in increasing our capacity to better parse that data and understand that data, working with computational oncologists, bringing in AI experts, so that we can use that data to the maximum extent possible. Number two here, and this is really the biggest bucket, is really driving preclinical research, and that is groundbreaking new research and developing new treatments, new medications, new cell therapies, and building truly a research center that will be based at CHOP and Penn Medicine. They're fully on board with this. They have got the resources. They're ready to jump as soon as we finish raising the funds. And sort of under that preclinical research priority, there are three main areas that we want to target. One is developing new immunotherapies, expanding the aperture of HLA types that cell therapies like Tecelra and Lete-cel, allowing a cell therapy like that to be useful for a broader portion of our population, since right now with the current cell therapies and the HLA typing restrictions, only about 30% of the population is fortunate enough to be able to receive that. Then developing personalized medicine resources that will allow patient tumor tissue to be studied and grown in labs, so that before things like chemotherapy are administered or other various treatments, doctors and clinicians can better understand if they're going to actually be effective for a particular patient, so that you don't have to be put through an awful regimen of AIM chemotherapy if we know that particular chemotherapy is not going to necessarily be horribly effective for your tumor type. And then in addition to that, a number of targeted therapies and developing new therapies that will target various fusion proteins and the genetic markers in synovial sarcoma, again, hoping to find a way to target specific biomarkers in synovial sarcoma that would allow a broader portion, if not 100% of our community to be able to receive those new treatments. So really exciting stuff. Again, if we don't do this, nobody else is, and we're really fortunate that CHOP and Penn Medicine have the infrastructure in place that will allow us to do this quickly, not over the course of years. It's not as though Chas and I are not interested in raising millions of dollars right now, only to then wait years to stand up a research program and the infrastructure that will allow us to start moving the needle. Which is why it's important for us to have a partner like CHOP and Penn Medicine. And then as we move from preclinical research into clinical trials, which is sort of the final stage before it's brought to market, ensuring that, again, we're ahead of the game and making sure that once we have a potential breakthrough, that we can bring it to clinical trial as quickly as possible. And again, the infrastructure at CHOP and Penn Medicine will be instrumental for that, as well as all of the other institutions that we're building relationships with. Chas, anything else that I missed there?
No, I mean, in the coming days, we're going to be, in coming weeks, we're going to be kind of standing up all of these different pillars for fundraising, and it's going to be notated on our website. And we're going to be, Nathan and I are going to be actively pursuing large and small donors. We're going to be looking for your support to help fund these initiatives as well through your networks and advocacy. It's the only way we're going to get this done. And I think with we have the power of scale now. We have over 300 something members in our group now that has the ability to advocate for themselves and their family members to help support these initiatives. And we're going to be working to activate them all on your behalf.
Well, that leads to the end of the presentation. We are available to answer questions. Feel free to reach out to either Chas or I anytime. We try and be as much of a resource as we possibly can be, but we also plan to be doing these updates at the very least quarterly, so that we can share the updates in terms of everything from research to breakthroughs to new information that we've learned, and obviously our efforts to expand all of the tools and resources that we've spoken about. So anyway, thank you all for your support. And if you ever want to participate even more with the foundation, we are more than happy to take additional help and support. So again, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you, Chas.
Thank you.